Hi, my name is Eddie Russell, and in this first set of videos, we'll learn some basic information about working in MARI that you'll need to know as you get started. In this first video, we'll learn how to create and work with MARI projects. Alright, great. So I've got MARI 3 open here, and if this is your first time opening MARI, you're probably looking at a screen that looks very similar to the one I have here. Now, we have here basically the MARI interface with only one tab available to us, and that's the Projects tab. Now, MARI is an application that is going to create sort of a proprietary project that you're going to be working in for each of the assets that you'll be texturing. Now, in my Projects tab, I have 4 different projects. You can see them right here. Now, you probably don't have 4 projects. You may just have this example project 3 right down here. But these are a couple of projects that we'll be working with as we move through this course. Now, the process of creating a project here inside of MARI is very, very simple. We can do this in a few different ways. We could actually come up here to the File menu right here, and we can go to New. We can click this New button right here, just below the File menu. We can come down here on the Projects tab, and there is a New button right here. Or we can come in and right-click and simply select the New option, just like so. Now, in creating a project, let's just walk through that process here. So, if I were to click that New button here, you're going to get this pretty standard New Project dialog. Now, the first thing we probably want to go ahead and do is name our project. So the asset that we'll be working on for the most part in this course is going to be an assassin character asset. So I'm just going to title my project Assassin. Now, the next thing we'll need to do here inside of MARI is point MARI at the geometry that we want to use. So let's go ahead and simply click on this button right here. And that's going to bring us to MARI's file browser, and we can come over here and browse the drive that we want to look for. Simply click through the file structure. You can see that I'm already pointed at the folder in which I have my geometry saved. So let's take a moment before I select my geometry here, and we'll go ahead and just pull over an Explorer window here, and I'll just kind of break down the project files that you have access to with this course. You'll see inside the course folder, basically we have 2 different directories. We have our MARI files, and then I have a referenced files folder. Now, the MARI files folder, that's going to have one file in it. That's going to be what's known as a MARI archive. We'll talk more about those here in just a moment, but you can see that is a very, very large file. The reason that is so large is because that is the completed assassin asset with all textures painted. So in the referenced files folder, you're going to have 2 folders. You'll have geometry and images. Images will have any kind of photographs or other imagery that we're using inside this particular course. The geometry folder will have the geometry files that you'll need if you wanted to, say, paint this assassin from scratch. So we want to go ahead and, for this particular video, we'll go ahead and grab our assassin final geometry here. I'm going to go ahead and move that out of the way, and we'll go ahead and jump back over to MARI. And there's that assassin final.obj file. Before I select that, notice that we have the option to select a few different types of files here. We can select an Alembic cache, an FBX file, an OBJ file, or a PTEX file. Let's go ahead and for this video, we'll select that Assassin Final OBJ. Now, it may take MARI a moment to create this project simply because that is a very, very large piece of geometry. It's actually almost 600 megabytes. So we'll go ahead and open that. You'll notice this new project dialog changes a bit. We have our mesh options that become available to us. So the mapping scheme is the first option here, and the default is to use UV layout if available. Now, if the asset we're working with has UVs that have been laid out, then MARI is going to use those to create the project. If it doesn't have a usable UV layout, then MARI is going to default to PTEX. So that is per face texturing, and that does not require a UV layout. So I know that this asset does have usable UVs. We'll go ahead and move on. The next option here is selection sets, and we can choose to create this from face groups, or we can select the don't create option. I haven't created any explicit selection sets with this asset, so we're not going to work with those, but MARI can read any kind of selection sets that you have saved into your assets. And multiple geometries per object, we'll just go ahead and leave that set to the default of merge geometries into one. Now down in this lower portion of this dialog, this relates to the textures that either already exist for the asset or the textures that we're going to be creating for the asset. So up here in kind of the top portion under texture, you see the root path. So if there are textures that we're wanting to bring into this project that already exist, we can scan a directory here for those particular textures. And if they match up with MARI's UDIM scheme for the asset, then MARI can bring those in. But we're going to be starting our asset from scratch here, so we don't need to utilize that. Now down below here, this is where we can tell MARI to create what are known as channels ahead of time. Now we're going to get into channels a little bit later on, but just understand that channels hold texture information for MARI. So if we wanted a channel for all of our color information, we could come over here and just say create. We can come in and we can say, okay, I want this channel to be a 4K channel, meaning 4096 pixels by 4096. And that would be for each individual patch or texture space. We'll talk more about that here in just a moment. We have the option to select the color space, the file space, the default fill color, which is available if we simply click on this little gray swatch right there. We'll get the color picker. We have our bit depth and our file basically naming scheme here. So now typically when I'm starting a new project like this one, I typically don't create my channels ahead of time because we have the option, once we get our geometry loaded into the project, to manually create our channels within the project. So for the purpose of this video though, I'll go ahead and select create here. Now down below this, we do have this option for color space, which is a little bit inconspicuous. If we come in here and click that though, you'll see that a whole bunch more options come available for us. We have all of our color space options here, and we're going to do a video dedicated to just color space and color management inside of MARI. So I don't want to dive too deeply into this right now, but this is available to you at project creation. Let's go ahead and click the OK button here inside the new project dialog, and that's going to go ahead and set MARI about creating the new project. Now this is going to take just a moment for MARI to complete this. Again, that's a fairly large piece of geometry we just fed it. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video while it creates our project. Now once MARI has finished going through that process, what you'll see here is something similar to this. This is the new project that we've just created, and we've loaded in our assassin geometry. Now at this point, we can begin the process of creating any additional channels or even starting to paint textures for this project. I am at this point going to go ahead and save my project simply by coming over here and clicking this button right here. That will save the project, so that'll now show up on our Projects tab. And if I come over here, you can see on my Projects tab, there is our new project. So let me go ahead and close out of the project. And we can simply do that by clicking this little piece of paper icon with the X on it, and that will close the project that we just created. And you can see it exists right here inside of our Project tab. Now, I do have a few additional projects here that I had been playing with before I started recording this course, and I want to show you the process of deleting projects. Sometimes you'll end up with projects where you're just, for example, with this shoulder test, I was just testing out the UVs that I was working on for that particular piece of armor. So I really don't need that project. I don't need it cluttering up my Projects tab, so we can come over here and simply click the Delete button, and that will delete the shoulder test project. There we go. Fantastic. I have another one here titled Knife. I was working on the knife. We could come in and delete that one as well. All right, great. So now the last thing I want to wrap up this video with is opening an archive. We talked a moment ago about MARI archives when I was showing you the project files for this course, and I do have that Assassin Final MARI archive. Now, as we proceed through this course, you may want to have that archive available to you. So in order to look at all those textures as I've painted them for that asset, you'll need to open that archive up here inside of your Projects tab. And you can do that simply by clicking on this Open Archive button and then browsing to that file. I'm not going to do that because I already have the archive loaded up here. But just know that working with MARI archives is a way to store everything inside of your MARI project in a single file, so you can pass it off to another user, maybe another artist in your pipeline. All right, fantastic. So with that, let's go ahead and wrap this first video up, and we'll move on to a video dedicated to getting to know the MARI user interface.